Hey, what's going on, man? Brand new episode of the Foul Pole to Foul Pole podcast, brought to you by our friends over at the Carolina Patriot Collegiate League. If you haven't had a chance to check them out yet, man, check it out. It's cpatriotcl.com. Brand new summer softball league coming to the Carolinas during the months of June and July. Going to have incoming college freshmen looking to get their feet wet in the college game. You've got kids in the transfer portal looking for a new home. Then you've got other ones that are just looking to stay sharp. There's a lot going on. Go check it out, cpatriotcl.com. You can register, or fans, you can stay up to date with all the information. This episode is brought to you by our friends over at the Nexus Mount. Our turnkey kits provide a secure and hassle-free way to attach multiple devices to any fence, net, or tripod. Crafted from lightweight aluminum with a powder-coated finish, our mounts are built to last. But that's not all. Our innovative design features a removable shade cover to protect your devices from direct sunlight during your outdoor streaming events, which will minimize the risk of overheating. Don't settle for anything less than perfection. Unleash the full potential of your streaming experience with the Nexus Mount. Visit us today at thenexusmount.com and elevate your game. All right, let's get going. Today is April 2nd, Tuesday on this week. I'm your host, Coach Tyler from Black Diamond Softball and Fitness. We got a pretty good one for you today. I've been seeing a lot of posts lately about tryouts and that sort of thing, guest players and getting the season rolling and all that good stuff. And a lot of teams have been playing for quite some time now. A lot of teams started last month playing competitively and just really getting going. The older girls are still in the middle of their high school softball season, so you're not seeing too much of the older groups really getting into the higher level competition in tournaments and stuff like that. But nonetheless, the 8s, 10s, and 12s, some 14s are out there getting it on, which is awesome. And for the ones that are still wrapped up in high school ball, there is plenty of travel ball left for this season. It's really hadn't gotten going yet. But what I wanted to talk about was sort of the coaches, and when it comes to selecting your teams, selecting your players, looking at roster size, looking at the type of players you want to have on your team, and sort of keeping in mind what your end goal is for the season and, you know, for when it's all said and done and you hang up your whistle. A lot of times we get caught up in the now, where we want to be as competitive as possible right now in this tournament and every tournament. And sometimes we get too caught up in that to where we're only looking for specific studs and unicorns that will make us win right now. And when that happens, we sort of push aside other players that maybe didn't have a great tryout, maybe haven't hit that athletic level that you would like them to be at. So you're looking, say you got a 10U team and you want to be the best 10U team that's out there. And you're only going to take players that wow you. Unfortunately, you're just not going to fill a team. There are so many teams out there that have 5, 6, 7 players that are just like you, looking for that, 2, 3, or 4 other players to round out their roster. And you're looking for studs. And if they're not a stud, I'm not taking them. Well, eventually, over time, you're going to learn that with the right development and teaching and that kind of stuff, these players will get to a certain level over time. So as you're looking and you're doing your tryouts and stuff like that, take a flyer on someone, take a shot on someone, give them the opportunity to prove to you that they can develop. Because as a coach, when you first started out, you weren't very good. You're probably still not very good. You're not as good as you're going to be in a year or so. So what does it matter right now if a 9-year-old player or a 10-year-old player isn't some bona fide stud, isn't some hammer out there? I see it all the time where players start out and they're on a couple of different teams over a couple of years. And then finally they hit their home and they get their opportunity, or they start to show their development, or they, find that right coach that allows them to make their mistakes, allows them to be a kid and work through this. We get so caught up in trying to find the next Jada Coleman or trying to find the next Keegan Rothrock, and they're not there yet, or we just don't see it yet. So we don't give them, their opportunity. We don't give them their shot. And there's so many parents that are listening to this where you have that player that finally at some point a coach gave them that opportunity. And it's like everything you've been saying, behind closed doors or to your best friends or to even to your kid or your spouse. It's like, we love this coach. He or she finally gave us, the opportunity, or gave little Susie the opportunity. And look, so now we hate all the coaches that passed on her before and this and that. It happens all the time. I've got players on my team that for whatever reason weren't on a team, or were passed up or left their team or whatever. And they didn't do anything different for me. They didn't, showcase anything that they haven't shown before. You have that conversation with them and the parents, and it's an understanding of, we're here for development. I know how good you are. I know how good you can be. And I just want to be a part of your journey. And we go together. We develop together. And as a coach, I've gotten so much better over the years of understanding people and understanding the game, that I've gotten to this point where I want to share that so that the coaches that are coming don't make the same mistakes that I did. Because I was that same type of coach that was trying to get all the best players that I could in the area, just looking at skill set alone. But there's so much more that goes into that. There's so much more in the development process. Kids develop athletically different from each other. You'll have one that developed well enough at the 10U level that was a dominant pitcher. Well, as the game kind of evolves for them and they get a little bit older and they go back to 40 feet and then 43 feet, now they're not as dominant anymore. So does it mean that kid's not good anymore? No, absolutely not. It's just they haven't taken that next step in their development process, or they haven't been around the right coaches, or there's a lot that goes into that. So as you develop as a coach, think about the kids that will continue to develop, and you have to help them continue to develop. So as we get back to building your rosters and having your tryouts, and we will talk about guest players in a little bit, but as you're building your roster, trying to figure out, is a 9, 10, 11 member team, is that my fit? Is that what I need? How many pitchers do I need to carry? I have this one, and I'll put it in air quotes, great pitcher. She's my ace. She's my go-to. And God forbid we say that bracket, she's my bracket pitcher. Awesome. You got a bracket pitcher, right? Well, you also have probably 3, 4, or 5 other girls at your 10U or 12U level that are also pitchers. They're doing the exact same thing that your bracket pitcher has done, but just hasn't gotten the opportunity yet to show you. So you got this girl, you're coaching a 12U team that was a heck of a pitcher at the 10U level, was able to she's got a fastball. She can hit her spots sometimes, most of the time, if you will. And then now maybe that team has folded and you're looking for a player. And here she comes. She tries out for you and she makes the team, and she tells you she pitches, she plays short, and she can play center. Well, you've already got a stud in center. You've already got a stud at short, and you've already got your bracket pitcher. So you don't give her the same opportunity. All you're doing is looking at, hey, I've got another player. So a year goes by where you had this pitcher that could have been developing with you and for you, that you never gave an opportunity because you've got this girl that's been with you since day one, because it's your buddy's daughter. So now you have that one pitcher, the only one that's had that, big game moments and had that development, and she continues to develop and get better, while these other players, these other pitchers didn't get an opportunity to do that. All of a sudden, now they leave and they get to a team that has 4 pitchers that are just like her. So now here she comes, the 5th, and they are continuing to develop. There's not some necessary ace pitcher or some bracket pitcher. They all have this development. And you look, there are some teams out there, a lot of teams out there that are on the higher level. And we know there's many different levels to this travel game, but they're up there towards the top as far as competition is concerned. And you never know what pitcher they're going to throw out there. They could pitch the first game of the tournament or the last game, the championship game of the tournament. It's all about how that coach is able to manage those players. He's got a pitcher that he can draw a name out of the hat and be like, okay, we're going with this one. And he feels confident because he's able to develop all of his pitchers over time in those game scenarios. Now, he can't develop them with their pitching instructor. He can't develop them with the work they're doing at home, but he can put them in the moments in the game and allow them to fail and allow them to grow and allow them to get better over time. Because at a tournament, a 14U tournament out in the middle of nowhere with like 6 teams, that's not really doing a whole lot for your player other than allowing them to be in that moment. It doesn't matter if you win that championship. It doesn't matter if you lose that championship. You're in that moment competing because experience is the ultimate teacher, right? Just posted something yesterday about that. Experience is the toughest teacher because a lot of times you're learning that lesson after you've taken the test. So you jump out there and boom, this is the very first time I'm in a championship game. It's a tight game. This team is solid. They're studs. We haven't lost a game all weekend long. Neither has that team. Here we go. This is the first time I've been in that situation. And that's where experience comes from. You get into it as a coach. Maybe your best pitcher just pitched the 2 games prior to get you into the championship, and you can't throw her now. So now you've got to go with that pitcher that you never thought was your bracket pitcher. And lo and behold, she gave you an opportunity to win that game. Was getting weak ground balls, getting weak pop flies, had a few strikeouts, no wild pitches, able to control the defense, communication wise and that sort of thing. You're like, wow, holy crap. I can't believe I never gave her an opportunity before. And sometimes your hand is forced in what you have to do. We go with what we know. We're humans. We go with what we know. Little Susie is my bracket pitcher. She pitches every championship game for me. Well, what happens if little Susie's not there anymore? Little Susie gets hurt. Something happens between mama and daddy and they pull little Susie off the team. You got a roster of 12 players. Susie is one of those 12. You got a roster of 10. She's one of those 10. So when you're building these rosters and you're looking at it, look at it from a fit standpoint. Look at it as you're putting the puzzle pieces together. Don't look at it as these are my favorite pieces of the puzzle and I'm only going to look at this one corner of the picture when it's all said and done. You got to look at the whole thing. Give your kids the opportunity. Who's to say? Why are you the end all be all when it comes to what's best for your team? Have some people outside of that coaching realm be able to sort of influence you in some way. Talk to your assistant coaches. Look at it from a fit standpoint. Look at it from a cohesion standpoint within your team. Don't just take it because of some gut feeling reaction that only you have. Talk to the players. See who's got it. Figure out, how do they respond? What does the defense look like when this pitcher is on the mound? What does the defense look like when this player is playing first base? Are you bold enough to make some sort of adjustment for the betterment of your team? You may lose a tournament. One of these ring tournaments that you guys go to. Got 6 teams in it, and there's 2 brackets. So there's a gold and a silver, and there's 4 teams taking away hardware. Does that medal or that banner or that trophy or that plaque or that ring or whatever, does it mean that much to you that you'll put that above the experience and development of a player? That's what it boils down to. There's so many coaches out there. It doesn't matter, man. They will sandbag their 2 pool games, get blown out, and then go win a bronze championship. There'll be like 12 total teams. They'll split them up into 3 different brackets. So the top 2 teams are in the gold bracket, 1 through 4, and then 5 through 8 are the silver, and then 9 through 12 are the bronze, and you go win that bronze championship. I've seen it, man, where people won't even win a game all weekend long and somehow end up in the silver championship and get blown out, but will be celebrating a silver bracket championship. Like, I don't know where we've gotten to as far as athletic development and coaching and that kind of stuff, man. One piece of advice: practice more, play less. Practice more, play less. And what I mean is get up with it like a scrimmage instead of giving these tournament directors and giving these tournament sanctions all your daggone money that you've fundraised for and you worked your butt off to get sponsorships and this and that for. You're going to paying $400 or $500 for a tournament that you just played those same teams in another town last weekend. Get together with them and scrimmage, set up scenarios so you can work on something. We'll do 3 rounds of bunt coverages, right? Everybody knows we're bunting here, but it's a practice. Pay your umpire separate. Both teams come up with $50 a piece and practice one morning with another team. Set up scrimmage scenarios. And then you don't have to give away medals and trophies and plaques and whatnot. That's where coaches, you can see like, hey, I want to bring this player on. I want to have a tryout and she's worked out with our team or whatever. I want to bring her in and see how she performs and listens to the coaching and communicates with the team during a game situation. So you set up those scrimmages, have friendlies. There are teams all over the country that set up friendlies. They may only play 6 tournaments a year, but man, they play a ton of ball because on the weekends that they're not playing, they may practice on a Saturday and then Sunday they may have like a round robin with 3 or 4 other teams and they get to play, scenario based scrimmages. We're going to start this inning out, runner on second, nobody out. Defense has got to try to get out of it. Offense has they can use their bunts, they can do this, they can do that, use their base running. There's a lot of different things you can do. But y'all would rather go out there and pay $400 for 55-minute games and play an hour and 5-minute bracket play. You get there and start at 8 o'clock and you don't leave till 8 o'clock at night because it's a one-day tournament playing against teams that are right across town from you where y'all could have done this, played 4 games in a day and gotten better, built that camaraderie, had a barbecue or a cookout in the middle of the day, set up a day where it's just a bunch of drills. You get with other coaches, say, hey man, we want to do outfield drills. We want to do catching drills. We want to do infield drills. We want to do hitting drills. And then at the end of the day, we'll get together and we'll play a couple of, hour and 15-minute scrimmage scenarios where you just go, you just play. Every inning, it starts a brand new thing. Hey, this inning, we're going to start runners on first and second. Nobody out. Let's go. Maybe that last game of the day, bases are loaded. And let's try to get out of it. Defensive team is up by 4. Bases loaded. Let's go. Set that stuff up so you can see development. I mean, that gets all the way back to the original point of looking at players, not that when you see them, this is the best they're going to ever be. Look at it the other way and say, okay, hey, this is where they're starting from. This is where I can build from. I want them to help me compete and continue to develop because the better we get, the more we can and have developed. Don't look at it as this is as good as my team is going to be. I need to find the right tournaments to win with what I've got. No, continue to chase those tournaments where you're in the middle of the pack. If you're in the middle of the pack teams, you're exactly where you need to be. And then you give yourself a chance to win those championships. But if you're jumping out there and you've been the class for C for ever how long, and the only time you lose is when another team from a Class A or Class B team drops down and plays that or plays in an open. That's the only time you lose. But you need to go play in those tournaments where that's the only teams that there are. And I talk to coaches all the time, and if we get on talking about records and stuff, we've only lost so many games, blah blah blah. Well, you need to go play in tougher tournaments then. What are you really developing those kids? Because eventually some of them are going to want to go play college ball. And there's not a college coach out there that's going to ask him, what was your record for your 16U team? They don't care. They can't quantify that record. They can't look at it and go, okay, well, what level of competition is that? But if you're out there and you're right around that 500 mark, maybe a little bit better, maybe a little bit worse, you're playing competition that's pushing you. That's game in and game out hard. But if you're a coach and all you're doing is trying to collect the best players in your town or whatever, and not trying to do any type of developing, just taking them to tournament to win things, Man, that's not a team that I want my kid to be on. That's not a team that I would want to coach. Because are you coaching or are you collecting talent? There's a difference, man. There's a difference between coaching and developing versus collecting talent. And it's a hard pill for some to swallow. If you're one of those that I coach to win and that's it, okay. Eventually that's going to catch up to you. Coach to develop, man. Don't coach to win. Winning is a byproduct of that development. It's a product of your development with your team, growing, where the stars align, and you're playing that tough competition. There's a tournament where every team that's in it has beaten you at least once, and you're sticking it out there. You don't care. You're going to play better. Hey, they beat us before. They're good. They're a solid team. We're getting in this tournament, haven't beaten a single one of these teams yet. And then that's where you go and you push. But you have to communicate that with your girls on your team. You got to talk to them about that. Like, hey, we would absolutely love to win. We got to make the plays to win. But if we don't, it's not the end of the world. We're out here pushing ourselves. The ball takes a weird hop. Makes a bad call. That could make us lose too. Or we could go out there and just every pitch we hit, they were hitting on the button. We couldn't stop them. We couldn't make these speed plays. We couldn't put the ball into play. We couldn't move a runner. We couldn't manufacture a run. That's the stuff we're working on. But we can also work on that in scrimmages and friendlies and, defense scenarios, offensive scenarios. We can all set this kind of stuff up and continue to develop. You don't have to throw your money away going from town to town playing the same teams. It's different. All I'm saying is take a look at that. Look at it from that side. Look at it from a development first approach. When it comes time to make a decision about who's bringing on, can you develop this player? Do you have it in you to be able to effectively communicate with her and her parents? To continue to develop her and be alongside her during her journey instead of, I look at this player and what she did in my trials and my practice, and I can use her to win. This isn't a free agency. We look at it as professional sports all the time. A free agent is on the market. Ooh, I've seen her play. I know I watched her pitch these bracket games, or I watched her hit home runs. She's going to get to me, and no one's going to be able to touch her when she's pitching. She's going to hit home runs, and we're just going to win because of this player. Man, it doesn't work like that. She needs to come in and gel with the team, and the team needs to respond well, and she needs to respond well, and there needs to be this cohesion and that kind of thing. That's where you need to be as a coach. And unfortunately, there are way too many teams out there with one or two coaches with 6 or 7 players on it that every single weekend they're looking for guest players. The reason why you go and look for guest players is because you're trying to win this tournament. But at the end of the day, what does it matter that you won that tournament? At the upper echelon of this, where you want to be, the teams that have those Power 5 Division I players that you will eventually watch on TV, they're not on teams that week in and week out are playing in tournaments, A. And B, they're not on teams that are looking for guest players. Think about that. It sucks to know or to hear or to find out. But if that's where you're at and that's what you're doing, you are on the lower echelon of player development. Get your team set first. Get your 10, 11, 12 players set. Practice, scrimmage, develop. Get into tournaments where you're over your head. Don't play every weekend. Don't play every weekend. Do other things than playing in a tournament. That burnout factor is real. There are many reasons that the players burn out. And one of the biggest things is never taking a break once you're in it. You got girls that are 14, 15 years old that have been playing travel ball since they were 8 years old, 10 years old. every weekend there's a softball in their hand. Man, could you imagine if you're a woodworker and that's all you did every day, day in and day out? At some point, there's a burnout. At some point. Time off is an element of development. Time off is an element to development. I'm not talking middle of the season, we're going to take a few weeks off. I'm talking just taking time off from tournament ball. Don't play in so many tournaments. Quit giving these tournament directors your money. You can do the same things. This weekend we don't have practice, but next weekend we're going to practice on Saturday and we're going to scrimmage some teams on Sunday. Following weekend we'll practice. The weekend after that we're going to play in this big tournament or whatever. All right. That's going to do it for me today. Appreciate you guys checking it out. Don't forget the episode sponsor, The Nexus Mount, over at thenexusmount.com. Check it out, man. I know you guys want to be streaming your games, your practices, your lessons, that kind of stuff, man. The Nexus Mount has a ton of different mounts for you. Whether you got a Mevo, a GoPro, you're using your cell phone, you're hooking it to a chain link fence or a net or whatever, go check them out at thenexusmount.com. And if you're looking for something to do this summer, June and July, check out the CPCL, Carolina Patriot Collegiate League, at cpatriotcl.com. My buddy Wayne Ritchie, he's the league owner, president, director, whatever you want to call him. He is the man when it comes to the CPCL, doing a lot of big things up there. He's been on a couple of different episodes of the podcast, talking about it, being about it, man. This development stuff that we've been talking about at the younger ages, it continues to happen at the collegiate age. He's got freshmen that are coming in. They're getting their first taste of the college softball atmosphere this year before joining their team in the fall. You've got players that are in the transfer portal looking for a new home for whatever reason. And then you got other players that are coming into their junior or senior years just looking to stay sharp before they get into fall ball. So there's a lot going on up there in Fayetteville, North Carolina. June and July. Players, if you want to register, cpatriotcl.com. Fans, if you want to stay up to date with all the information, game times and that kind of stuff, check it out, cpatriotcl.com. So that's going to do it for this one. We appreciate you guys. If you know someone that may like to listen to a softball podcast, not some professionally produced and this and that type of podcast, but just a dude that sits in his office and shares his thoughts and that kind of stuff, man, share it with them. And if you got a friend and you want to share it with that friend, as always, man, be sure you tell them you love them.